Hey everybody, I am so excited here to have friend and former colleague, competition.
Yeah. All I wanted was to take all your jobs, Marco.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I'm the reason Marco doesn't sing anymore. No, it's not true. And he does continue to sing. Don't ever let him tell you he doesn't sing. He sings great.
Dude, I'm trying, man. My voice has gotten all sorts of screwed up ever since I sort of slowed down a little bit. I can't sing above a B flat, and my B flats are tight.
How does talking all day into a microphone affect your
Yeah,
voice?
but that's the other thing, dude. You know how tenors, we kind of bottom out around a D or E natural below middle C? Bro, I can sing a low B flat now comfortably.
Okay. You've trained your larynx to
just pressing on my chords the whole time. I think you're the first tenor that I've had on here, and my instinct was maybe I just play nothing but tenor arias, but then I was like, there's so many other options, and there's so many cool things to listen to, so I don't know. I kind of wung it with you here. You have not played a video game since early thousands?
Maybe my first year of college, and even then I was already playing old games. I was stuck on Final Fantasy VII, which was probably 6 or 7 years old already by then.
I can already hear the commenters writing. He's definitely a gamer since he's played games before. Well,
I have played a game, but probably not a gamer.
There's a lot to talk about, and there's a lot to cover since the 90s. And this is really hard because there's so much good music. So we're just going to dive in with Sins of the Father from MGS5. Do you know anything about Metal Gear Solid?
That's the guy who sneaks around the corner and to be sneaky.
Snake, yeah.
Night, reaching out, grasping for a fleeting memory. All the thoughts keep piercing this broken mind. I fall, but I'm still standing, motionless. Distance, there is light, a light that burns these scars of old. All this pain reminds me of what I am. I'll live, I'll become all I need to be.
She's got pipes, dude.
Yeah. Couldn't be me.
Words that kill, would you speak into me with your breath so still? It makes me believe in the
Yeah, so I mean, that's your first song coming back to video games in like at least 20-ish 4 years. What's your sort of like hot take
It's not as different as I imagined it would be.
to what it was?
To the kind of music that was happening in the early 2000s. Obviously, the quality of the recording is so much higher than anything they could have done back then. I mean, it's so clear that the amount of resources they pour into this now is amazing. I mean, you can just hear the orchestra, the choir, her track that's, doubled over herself. And I think those two singers are both her, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is.
But the harmonies and the musical style, it still harkens back to some sort of like a 90s idea of the future, which all comes out of like Spielberg and John Williams and Hans Zimmer. And that's all like that kind of like classic idea of what forward-thinking technological music might be, but still with sort of this like very heavy tonality, like big minor chord, modulation, new minor chord, still very serious.
Well, and that's the thing too, is that like it's like these are like proper songs, like
yeah.
It's a really fascinating thing to have music that is both so emotionally driven, but also both aids and stands on its own in and out of context, which I think is phenomenal. Because how many operas have you listened to? And I'd love to talk with you about this actually, because actually most of the operas I ever listened to were all through recordings. I never saw context until I happened to see it down the road. A lot of folks are like, well, how come you can't separate the context? And I'm like, I don't know, man. I separated the context for like 10 years.
And I've always, even when I'm listening to pop music, like when I grab onto a hook or a groove, I'm not really paying attention to the lyrics. I know some people are different in that way, but like I'm never like, what really speaks to me about Ariana Grande's music is like her feeling about men. It's like, no, it's like, it's a bop. That's why I'm into it. It's because it makes me bop. Similarly, in this excerpt, see, I'm already talking like opera nerd.
You elitist.
I'm sorry. Can't help myself. This track, I was sort of locked onto the lyrics for like a couple phrases, couple verses maybe even. But then once it got into like the jam, I wasn't really locked onto the story anymore. I was there for like the wall of sound. Can I tell you one other thing it reminded me of that I haven't thought about in probably 25 years? You'll probably remember, since you were a nerdy young singer in the 90s, the Frank Wildhorn musical Jekyll and Hyde.
Yes.
The two women characters both had kind of like torch songs like in this sort of mode.
I forget what they were called. Still alive? Still here? Yes. Yeah.
In His Eyes was the duet between the two women.
Ah, yes.
And the one was like a prostitute, I guess, and the other one was his betrothed. But then, of course, because he had this like split personality, he would be into one or the other depending on whether he was Jekyll or Hyde. The piano and the minor key and the way it sort of maneuvered around the minor key reminded me of that kind of like brooding, which is funny because that's a story that takes place over 100 years ago.
It's so funny you mentioned the 90s because it does remind me a little bit of even stuff that I would hear from Scarlet Pimpernel, the musical.
Totally, same composer.
Oh, it's the same composer.
Yeah.
Man, I love that book. That book, I was obsessed with that. Anyway, we're going to fall off this train, so I don't want to get off, of course. If you're watching this video, chances are you enjoy video games and video game music. And a game that incorporates both of these extremely well is Shin Megami Tensei V: Vengeance. If you like serious overtones and you enjoy the Persona series or other JRPGs like that, Shin Megami Tensei V: Vengeance may be the perfect choice for you. It features very similar gameplay experiences to the Persona series, but it's the big brother version of that game. Perhaps you like really challenging gameplay. Well, Shin Megami Tensei V: Vengeance got you covered, because one of the things that this series is known for is how difficult it is. There are tons of options for you when it comes to strategy, whether it's party optimization, fusing your demons together to make them even stronger, leveling skills, and of course, your abilities. And more than that, if you've been hesitant to try it, well, now is the perfect time, because Shin Megami Tensei V: Vengeance is actually on sale September 19th through September 26th on Steam for for 30% off. So if you've been hesitant to try it because of price, now might actually be the perfect time to check it out and download it on Steam, PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo Switch. And a game with such a wide and varied soundtrack from chill piano to incredible EDM, what's not to like if you're a video game music fan? Check it out on sale right now on Steam for 30% off between September 19th and September 26th. The next piece is the Crazy Bus title screen. We'll only listen about 10 seconds of this, but I feel like I need to present this to you. Okay, we can stop there. I don't know what's going on there, but that was a piece of video game music.
That's surprising.
Was that the closest thing to avant-garde? And was it? You think that was like 12-tone row?
I think it probably is serial in some way. Like it's probably put through a randomizer, but the rhythm is consistent. You know,
At the very least. Do you feel like you could listen to 4 minutes of that?
I definitely could. Yeah, I'm an odd duck.
I don't want to.
If you don't want to, we don't have to.
Really, you think you could find beauty in the Crazy Bus title screen?
I don't know if beauty is the right word. I think that it could make me think about my life choices, which is kind of what I want art to do to me. And
Do you want to
video
listen to another 30 seconds?
Sure.
I have to say, it actually was palatable.
Did you start to focus more on like repeating notes and things that
Yeah.
are coming back? It's weird. Like you and I are trained, but even people who are not classically trained, we are culturally trained by the canon of all music that we have heard in life to strive for that resolution, tonic, dominant, release. And this is just all tension. This is just like pure discomfort. But there's something like kind of emotionally evocative about leaning into that. In that moment, you're like, oh, this doesn't make me feel good. Don't like this. But like, how often can you say, like, a TV show you watch doesn't make you feel good? Like, most stuff you put on, it's just boring, or it just doesn't entertain you. But if something gets a rise out of you and gets you thinking differently, it's like, oh, okay, this is interesting.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's so interesting because I put this on like the worst video game music of all time video.
Depends what you're trying for or what you're...
Yeah, and I'm not I think if I recall correctly, this was like filtered through some sort of computer, and the computer is what made. I don't think someone actually composed this per se.
Right. It actually even sounds like probably more than 12 tones, maybe like maybe even microtonal, unrelated to our musical system.
But you make a really interesting point about what it feels like to feel something, and how if let's say our job in an opera world or in a music world is to help elicit people to feel.
Yes.
I find this incredibly hilarious. But let's say, for the sake of argument, that the Crazy Bus title screen, now, it probably, maybe, the intention was to make it sound crazy. It certainly succeeds in that.
To put you on edge.
I find that really interesting. You just, like, kind of blew my brain open there.
Well,
because you're right. We avoid things.
Well, in video games, right, mostly you would say, or one would say, we play video games to escape or for enjoyment, right? For pleasure. Yeah. Do we ever play video games to test ourselves or to ask more of ourselves?
It depends on the game.
Challenge ourselves to think differently about how we live our lives, or what, because that's kind of what I think about with, say, I'm singing an art song, German art song from 180 years ago. Hundreds of other tenors have sung before me. I might not be bringing anything new to the song, but I might be bringing it to new audiences who never thought about the way they love or the way they grieve. If that unlocks a feeling for the listener that is inherently unpleasant, I've still done my job.
You elitist. I can't believe you found something artistic to say about the Crazy Bus title screen.
Found something to like about Crazy Bus. Yeah. I don't even know what Crazy Bus is.
Joke.
What kind of
I don't know.
Sorry, I understand it's just supposed to be a meme, but like, Now I want to know about the game. So clearly the theme has been successful on me.
It's literally driving a bus. This is a recent track that blew my brain open. We're talking about games that challenge you. FromSoft is a company that makes difficult games. Demon Souls, Dark Souls, Dark Souls 2, Sekiro. So you've heard of this.
I understand it's supposed to be impossibly difficult, yeah.
Anyway, this is a spoilers for those of you that don't want to listen to this. This is the Promised Consort, final boss theme from Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. Phase 2.
So this is like a fight?
Yeah.
Aida. Organ.
Yeah. Church bells.
Yeah. Do you know what language?
Maybe Latin, but usually
Maybe made up?
Yeah. So I have a question for you. What do you think is happening based on having no context, whatever?
The big difference is like the shift from the first section to the second section, right? So like the first section is like super earthy and like grounded and like open fifths and like just like it kind of like reminded me a little bit of like, you know, the dwarves or the hobbits or something. Like the dwarves really more like this like very carnal, I'm talking Hobbit land, that sort of like very visceral feeling of like masculine battleness. After the phase change, there's all this religious imagery in the music with the church bells and the organ. It always strikes me with the church stuff that it's like, well, wait, we're in like fantasy world, so it's not like Christianity, but it's like something similar to Christianity. So it's like this, you know, whatever, some sort of like afterlife, resurrection, apotheosis kind of thing. That's what it makes me think. Am I close?
Yeah, I'd say so. See, chat? If music is a language, people are always like, oh my God, you watched the fight beforehand. How do you know all that? It's like, well, it's like, I mean,
there are tropes. And it's related also to the history of Western music, Wagner and Strauss and Verdi. And it's, you know, when you hear like open fifths in the low male voices, it just makes you think of like monks or orcs or like just something really, you know, really basic. You know, it gets you in that sort of like that drone feeling. And then when it builds up to something more ethereal, then the music evokes something otherworldly or afterlife.
Something that's really interesting and very common in music that we see so much in Verdi, and I know that you're as proficient in Verdi as I am, but there's a celestial voice thing.
Yeah,
you know, I always think of Don
the
Carlo.
solo voice. Yeah.
Yeah, Don Carlo. What's that?
It's usually like a girl.
Yeah, is that Act 2? End of Act 2 of Don Carlo?
That's not right. Yeah, like, and it's like also in Aida.
Yes, and Aida. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and it's often like sometimes they even cast it with like an untrained singer, like not an opera singer, so it's not like
so it's more raw,
but like really like that thin, you know, like almost like a boy
soprano.
Yeah, like it's a girl who's singing it, but it's like it's that like it's unvarnished. It's totally like pure.
Yeah, pure. Yeah. What do you think of this track on the whole?
I'm into it. For me, it reminds me of a lot of other like film music, and I don't want to say derivative.
You can say derivative. Don't come after him.
Obviously,
it feels derivative.
Obviously, this composer is very proficient and can do a much better job than I could. But yeah, it reminds me of a lot of other sort of fantasy music that I'm familiar with, Game of Thrones, or, you know.
Sure. I'll admit that I have a tendency to, as the kids say, glaze about video game music because I love it. So you're saying derivative. I know what you're saying. But for me, that's actually what makes it special, because
Oh yeah,
it's
it like
equal
harkens back to something.
rather than being like, oh, it's video game music. Okay, cool. It's like, oh, it's as at the
Right.
Well, okay, let me ask you that. Do you feel like, so derivative, it's because you've heard it before. Do
Yes.
you feel like this is equal to like Verdi and Wagner, or do you think it's less than? And it's not like a gotcha question. I'm just asking because out of curiosity to understand further.
If Verdi and Wagner did it, 130 to 170 years ago, maybe I'm biased towards that angle. They did it first, maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
But as far as the emotional impact, it's no less. And I can also imagine, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of the gamer, who's trying to do this Herculean task of this notoriously difficult game. And it's kind of like pump up music, but then it also like puts you in that like place of like, I understand you've been playing this game for a while, but this is actually going to get more serious, and you need to prepare
1,000,000%.
yourself.
1,000,000%. It's a really interesting conversation because I do have a tendency to, as the kids say, glaze.
Yes.
That's my new favorite phrase, because someone said that I glaze things, and I'm like, that's hilarious.
fine.
The imagery is unbelievable. It's
Very vivid.
To me, like, I would want to hear this in a symphony hall along with something that Wagner wrote, like the Rheingold, the orchestral,
the
ending
opening.
there. Do you feel like they would be equal? Or do you think that there would be like some, if someone didn't know the
I'm sure
difference?
there's an audience for that. I don't know if it's me. There's something about the music from the Romantic period, specifically the 19th century, that is so, it's broken away from, classical music and the restrictions of harmony and form, but then it still doesn't have any kind of technological influence, no electronic anything.
Right.
So it's purely, we're still talking strings made out of catgut and basic instrument making techniques, but the harmonies are so new and exciting and expressive of things that we previously been unable to express. There's something about the music of that period that really gets me going. Not that the electronics takes anything away from it. It's just a different challenge when you have those tools at your fingertips to do something new and exciting and interesting.
The only place we can go as a palate cleanse before we
Yes.
get into more classical, we have to listen to Yakuza 0, Baka Mitai, which is a karaoke in the game. People are going to be like, why did you waste Kevin's time? But I think it's really fun.
No, there's
And,
absolutely no way you could waste my time. I could do this all day.
I sing for you.
It's a mini game, so you have
I
to,
see. Okay.
so you sing and you push the buttons.
Okay. Circle X. Circle XX. Yeah, gotcha.
追って傷ついて嘘や下手なくせに笑えない笑顔を見せた
Oh, wow.
I love you もろくに言わない口下手でほんまに不器用なのにどうしてさよならは言えたのダメダメダメよダメなのよ
Yo, dame no.
あんたが好きで好きすぎてどれだけ強いを避けても歪まない思い出がバカみたい
Baka Mitai. Oh, yeah. Melodica solo. Nice.
Can't end it there. I gotta play this one out.
Sweet.
I don't know why I played this, but I was just like, what would be funny that I've never done?
I just think
And
it's
Baka
funny.
Mitai.
I mean, I think I would laugh while I was playing it.
Do you feel like it brings people to music in some way?
Brings people to music. Yeah, I mean, it makes you think about, like, the characters in the game also have music in their lives. It's that whole play between, like, diegetic and non-diegetic music. It's like
yeah.
this music that is happening over top of the story that only the game player is hearing and the characters are not hearing, versus music that's happening in the game and they're reacting to it, and there's like a dancing. I mean, it makes me think of like Ocarina of Time, you know, when like he starts playing for the Goron king and he starts dancing like
Non-gamer.
Yeah,
It's been 20 years.
well, if all my references are from 1997, then you know.
There are people that do not listen to music in the game while they're playing it. They play other stuff, and that's okay. You know, because we should you know, have music in our lives.
Yes.
But there are people that don't have music, or they don't even think about the music in a game.
Right.
And something like this, it's like, well, Baka Mitai is in the game intentionally. Why would Kiryu, you know, a Yakuza guy, be singing karaoke? What is the motivation?
Trying to feel normal. He's trying to feel like a person and not like a monster, right?
I agree with you. And I find that really interesting, though, because that subtext is like everything.
Oh, and music makes you feel, maybe he has trouble feeling, and music makes him feel.
Makes him feel like he can express himself.
Yeah, it's something that we're all familiar with, but in the game, in the moment, the songwriter knows that he's being silly, right? So it's like that familiarity is like, you know how sometimes when you're in your feels, you really want to listen to a sad song? Here's that, you know, turned up to 11.
And in fact, that probably actually raises the stakes even more. As we know, like opera has to always have high stakes, and music always has to have, for the most part, high stakes in order for us to really connect with. So
if the stakes were lower, you wouldn't have to sing about it.
I find that interesting. Again, man, Kevin, okay, you're like busting my brain open today, but it's true. It's true. In order for it to be taken seriously as a comedy, it needs to be so incredibly serious in order for it to be justified.
Any kind of comedy requires the action to be taken deeply seriously by the characters.
Look at what we found.
Yes, Baka
Mitai. Next time you listen to that in game, you're going to have a different perspective. So I know that you, obviously, you know Nobuo Uematsu, and you're a fan of Final Fantasy as a series, and you know, you've played it in your past. And one of Uematsu's sort of proteges, I guess, or his successor, in a way, Masayoshi Soken, writes the music for Final Fantasy XIV. In fact, I believe that 16, which was also composed by Soken, was actually in the Guinness Book of World Records for the most amount of music composed for a video game. You know how we get overworld themes in Final Fantasies as you're walking along, you know, as you're exploring? So it's the same thing with 14. And most recently, there's a new expansion called Dawn Trail, Final Fantasy XIV Dawn Trail. And this particular theme is based off of, I'm pretty sure it's based off of Peru and the Andes Mountains. It's called Urcopacha, and there's a day theme, as well as a night theme, but we'll listen to the day theme. I think it's so sublimely beautiful, and I just wanted to share it with you.
I heard a little Nobuo.
Coming from a world where you've sort of have some sort of understanding of Final Fantasy, this
Yeah.
is an overworld theme, not dissimilar to what you're used to, or used to 20 years ago. So I was curious what you felt of that.
You have like the Peruvian instruments, Latin influence. There's something really fresh about it. It feels very like the world is your oyster. You could do anything. You could go anywhere. It's kind of interesting the way the Latin instruments don't sound tropey. It doesn't sound like it doesn't sound like the music is making fun of the way.
It doesn't sound like a pastiche. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it's like making fun of Peruvian music or something. It's like taking those instruments and then the composer expressing himself with those sounds. When I think about like the concept of the downloadable content or whatever, like, here's a new opportunity to try something different in this world we already were in. And there's little elements that all the Final Fantasy music has, but even the main just like da 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 da, is like really like, it's so simple but also feels fresh.
Do you feel like this is actually more unique than what we listened to before with The Promised Consort?
It does feel to me more unique, more of one's own voice.
Fascinating.
That's
so
what
cool.
it feels like to me, while also having a nostalgic quality. The Elden Ring thing feels like I've got a few sounds in my orchestral writing playbook that I know are going to evoke emotions. Here they are.
I mean, this is a really interesting conversation for me because you're being astute, but also being very honest about it. Video games are such a refuge for me. So whenever I hear anything that like even reminds me of opera, I am like, oh my God, it's something that I love, but different.
Yes.
It's very interesting.
Well, and you also don't have to stress about it.
Yeah, no.
Should we visit the non-gamer conversation? Talk about my PS4.
Yeah, but you have like
that
FIFA
I only use to play Fall Guys with one friend, and we mostly play it mindlessly and talk about other stuff.
Oh my God, you are a gamer. This whole thing is ruined.
Yes, it was a ruse all along.
Recently, I became something that you can play on your PS4, and I recommend you play on your PS4. Okay. Here we go, everybody. Strap in. This is from Warframe. Warframe has become my darling game. It's a game that I adore. I'm not going to tell you anything about it, but let's just say that from November to February, I put in 140 hours easy. It is a joy to play for multiple different reasons. In fact, I was just in London, Ontario for TennoCon, which is a conference all about Warframe. Talking about glazing. I gotta stop saying that in this video, man.
It's going to be a glaze fest.
Listen, I'm just happy to have you on the channel. I've never had another tenor on here with me, so I'm just I'm glazing about you.
As long as it's about me and not anywhere near me.
Not near me. This is what you are. I really hold this song very deeply in my soul, and if you hate it, that's okay. When I first heard this, I was at the gym, and my dad had been recently diagnosed with cancer at the time. This song really pushed me through. Like I was like hurting myself physically, like burpees and like really like busting my ass, like pouring sweat, because somehow this song made me think that if I was doing that somehow I was going to alleviate my father's pain. And even though he did end up passing, this song like was one of these pieces that like really rooted itself into me. And I don't know what you're gonna feel when you listen to this, but that was just my own little personal story with this and why it's so meaningful. And if someone's like, well, why is this always coming up on the channel or whatever, it's because it's like, there are pieces of music, and I know you have these and I have these about opera and classical music that we really latch onto because of how they make us feel and what they make us think about. So, whatever you come away with, I like to share that story whenever I play this for people. Always hits me on the spot. So thoughts, and also, oh yeah, of course. So what was the like sort of two parts, I guess. What was the first thing that came to your mind as you were listening to this? Number one, and then number two, how does it make you feel? And also, what do you think is occurring? What is this piece about? What is this is what you are about?
It made me feel a lot. It actually made me feel things about my life and my journey. What it evoked to me was like something about like perseverance. There's something in that music about like the inexorability of the world is going to keep going, and you also have to keep going. And you don't have to do a lot. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to do everything the way everyone's always told you to do things. And even if it's as simple as, the theme, 1, 5, 4, 5, 3, 2, is so simple. But then even when the key changes and the mood changes and the mode changes, it comes back and it comes back and it comes back, and you have to keep representing yourself. Like, this is what you are. That's kind of what it feels like to me. Without getting too deep into details of my life, I've had a challenging year. A lot of things thrown at me that I thought I couldn't overcome. And of course, all I want to do is lay in bed and just be sad about it.
Yeah.
But, like, it's actually my responsibility to do something about it and do something with my life to, maybe have an impact on other people or just do something, make something out of this opportunity that we've all been given, which is to live on this earth in this moment. I don't know why this particular track is getting me in my philosophical feels.
It would be, I think, a profoundly cool experience for you. Now, I'm not a shill for Warframe, okay, everybody? I'm not a shill for Warframe. But it would be an opportunity that I think you would probably, if you have the time, to really dive into. It's free on PlayStation and all platforms. The funny thing to me about Warframe is that you spend 40-ish hours just like going from point A to point B. So the goal is you're going through the star chart on your ship, and you go to Earth, to Mars, to Mercury, to, all of them. Then you start to get to Neptune. And the story, a couple of years ago, I think 2017, I can't remember, some Warframe vet will tell me in the chat, in the comments, but in 2017, all of a sudden, they were like, surprise, you've been playing this for a couple years, here's like a story. You discover a secret, and it's one of the best kept secrets in video games, I think.
Cool.
And it's a phenomenal experience, and there are deeply human elements in this story this is why I praise it. I mean, is it a perfect game? No. And a lot of people are like, 40 hours to get to a story. Why the fuck would I play that?
That's really cool.
I mean, it's a looter shooter. You do the same thing over and over and over until you get to Neptune. And then all of a sudden, but this piece is really honest. And I think that's why I like it so much.
There's something very direct about it and it's just to the point.
The music is written so well that the context exists even outside of what you hear. Like, it's not just for the game. Right. It's also for your life.
Yeah.
I'm thrilled that I was able to share that with you.
Yeah.
It's a really gorgeous, gorgeous piece of music.
But I love that instrument. It sounds like that, like single string Chinese instrument.
The erhu.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's very
phenomenal
effective
stuff. But let's shift a gear here.
Okay.
Let's go to this.
Back to Crazy Bus?
No. Let's listen to Ups and Downs from Guilty Gear Strive.
Precious things, the heart turns into stone, hardly stop. Bedtime story, happy ending game, just a snapshot in time. Life is a journey, not a destination. Enjoy the ride with ups and downs. my precious things. My heart was in the storm, heart made the stuff. Bedtime story, happy ending, you just a snapshot in time. Life is a journey, not a destination. Enjoy the ride without down downs.
Your 90s sitcom section.
Like Billy Joel.
Hardly stop a bedtime story. Sometimes you have to play the party role. But what matters is that your eyes shine in the moment. Hardly stop a bedtime story. Happy ending, you just a snapshot in time. Life is a journey, not a destination. Enjoy the ride with ups and downs.
I'm getting like a Japanese version of like a Las Vegas high roller.
Yeah.
Bad boy kind of like young money. The piano and the horn band is kind of like he's like a young rich guy who's like a little too playful.
I could see that. Yeah. Anything else that comes to mind in terms of instrumentation and the way things are structured?
I just love the horns. I mean, I just can't get enough of the horns, you know, the saxes and the trumpets.
I know.
Yeah, it's good stuff. And it feels very like improvised and jazzy and kind of like you never know what to expect next, you know. But then with the rock, you know, guitar. So it's like it's like a full jazz big band with the rock sort of bass and guitar, electric bass and electric guitar.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun.
Slayer is essentially like he's a believer of dandyism. So you totally, I mean, like that. We're not far off in your wording at all. Like he's certainly not young. Well, but he appears young, but he's actually quite old because he's a vampire.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah.
But he has this this quality about him mixed in with. It's funny how the instruments actually lend themselves. The concept that really comes to mind here is I really think about. It's funny. I would never equate Guilty Gear Strive OST with Wagner, but the leitmotif usage is actually really interesting to me because not that this is a leitmotif because it doesn't necessarily appear whenever he's on screen or something, but as a theme,
yes,
it doesn't. It's not dissimilar to like Wotan's theme or Fro's theme or Loga.
In Wagner, like the leitmotifs, some of them are so simple that you could almost find them like anywhere because it's like, oh yeah, it's like a descending scale. Yeah, there are other descending scales in this opera, and maybe not all of them are representing Wotan. If you provide those things to grab onto, and the initial appearance is very clear, like this is the music that means the ring is cursed. Then whenever you hear those intervals, you know it's something to grab onto, like oh, this is the curse is working on whatever character.
The instrumentation really lends itself to understanding the characters, like maybe motivations, but certainly their personality.
It's interesting that really dandy part makes it like throws it back 100 years. Do they have dandies in Japan?
I don't know. All right, well, I can't let you leave without listening to at least one or two tenor arias. We're not done quite yet. All right, so this is Those Who Deny the Dawn from Octopath Traveler 2. He's biting the apple big time.
Also low.
Yeah. the high C's for sure. That's nuts.
It's like nuts, and it's not. It's like that's just like what that guy's voice does. He was born with that, you know. Obviously, he's very talented. He's very, you know, he's trained for a long time to maintain it. But I mean, he's just super comfortable at like G and A flat.
It reminds me of the back half of Tabato.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I don't know how people do.
Picture like a big barrel-chested tenor.
Yeah. But then the fact that it like repeats like 4 times, people don't know this, but tessitura is something that I've never talked about in a video. And the fact that you to be able to get through an entire phrase like that multiple times over, because it's not just about doing it over and over and over. It's about actually resetting. I'm talking to you as if I know you know this.
Right.
It's like resetting the chords,
right,
and resetting the larynx, because it's just like you're gonna muscle out.
You have to do it in a way that doesn't cause inflammation or any kind of like muscle tension. So it has to be kind of natural. So like that's why I say with this guy, it's like his voice just does that. It doesn't cost him anything.
Yeah.
That's just what he sounds like in that range.
But it's wild though, because it doesn't sound like a leggero tenor. It doesn't sound. It sounds like a full lead.
No, it's like a spinto-y, like kind of like And he goes. I think it went down to this note. It's kind of like a baritone with an extension.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like a different voice than like a tenor, but it's cool.
Do you think that this is interesting, or do you think it was like mostly just noise? Do you think that it lacked nuance? Like, what's your
No, I think it's totally interesting. I mean, it's just like metal. It's just like you know, it's just like really super fast metal with crazy vocals. I mean, I've always thought metal vocals were crazy, but like they're usually non-classical. They're usually kind of that like screamy kind of tacking on like the like dramatic operatic sound onto the, you know, super fast drums and you know, fast guitar licks. It totally makes sense to me. It feels very like battle ready.
I think about this a lot. Like if this is like a legitimate extension of the evolution of opera.
Most new operas have electronic elements of some kind.
Could you imagine if you heard like metal and opera in an opera house? I don't think I've ever heard
like in an actual like opera house.
It would like putting on an opera with this kind of sound.
I can imagine it. Yeah. Well, it's kind of like you know, like Jesus Christ Superstar. You know, that has guitars and, you know, sort of some hard rock elements.
I think any opera company would be like, we got a program. I don't know. That would be such a risk.
It's a risk, but you know, what's the difference? It's all a risk. I mean, you know, the classics are a risk also. Also, if video game audiences are going to fill your hall, then, you know, how is that a bad thing? I'm sure that's a conversation you've had over and over and over again.
I have, but it's something I need to like figure out how to evolve into, because I feel like there's so much more work.
Yeah, you could be like the person who's the go-between between the audience and the gatekeepers.
I think about that a lot. I think about that a lot because there's so much fear. There has to be, because I feel like the classical music world has always had its back against the wall anyway. Yeah. And it's always like, okay, well, like what's safe? What works? What do our donors want? Yep. Especially when it's non-for-profit, because you know,
you can't do it.
And I feel like that's so like it would require like me being rich enough to be on every single board.
You know, typically how this works though with orchestras is the movie concerts and the video game concerts are separate, are like basically run by a for-profit entity. Yeah. Because they are profitable. You know, and then all the classical stuff is non-for-profit. Yeah. And so that's done out of the generosity of the donors' hearts. People used to ask me about the difference between opera and musical theater, you know, and we have this like sort of ongoing boring discussion about, you know, well, theater has dialogue and they use microphones, and opera is all, you know, the natural sound of the voice and it's acoustic and all this other stuff. The biggest difference between opera and musical theater is that musical theater makes money and opera doesn't. Unfortunately, that's just reality. You know, opera exists at the behest of the donors, which it's, you know, which we're grateful for. But it's kind of scary when you think about it that way, because it's like, okay, so what are the donors going to want in 30 or 40 years? Obviously, we want to give them what we want, but we also want to maintain the traditions, that we've been maintaining for a long time. All this, the thing about the operatic tradition is so much of it is just performance practice that is learned by just doing it and just being in the house and doing it with guys who've been doing it for 30 years. Obviously, that means at a place like New York or Berlin or Munich or Rome, you have to play the hits all the time because you got to keep doing Butterflies and La Boheme and Traviata because you just have to have that institutional memory of how we do it because it's all connected to literal people who literally did it with Puccini, so that is a valuable thing to maintain, a tradition to maintain. That doesn't mean the whole program has to be, or the whole season has to be traditional, romantic operas. There's something pretty exciting about being part of that tradition and continuing it. But then how do you mix that in with stuff that young people are excited about, stuff that people from other cultures are excited about? Those are tough lines to ride. I think you have your good taste and your performance experience puts you in a good spot to help bridge some of that gap.
Oh, thank you. Well, we'll see. This thing's still unfolding.
Yeah.
I want to shift gears,
Yes.
And I want to listen to something that's very different from what we've been listening to.
Great.
It's a piece that I listened to not so long ago from Planet Zoo, of all things. It's called You, Me, and Other Animals. And you think to yourself, oh, that'll be okay.
Delightful.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think before I tell you what I think?
It feels kind of light, upbeat, kind of like a beach scene, or like a not very stressful. Is what that's what it makes me feel
Probably
like.
not very
Like
stressful.
we're kicking back.
Yeah.
You know, we're good.
Do you feel like this music is shallow, or do you feel like this music is really important at the same time?
Totally important. It's just not a moment of dire, straits. It's just it's music that represents a different emotion, an emotion that is like comfort and ease. Maybe it's all false. Maybe it's all like, I don't know anything about the story or anything about the game, but like,
Me neither.
maybe it's all about to come crumbling down.
It's interesting how sometimes we throw words at things and equate them with one thing or another.
Yeah,
but
right.
All things are valid when it comes to music.
Well, and of course we're going to gravitate towards like the most intense moments of a game, or of an opera even.
Yeah.
When we do our auditions, we sing the absolute, climactic point of the opera for the audition because we want the casting directors to know that we can do that most demanding part.
Yeah.
But that's not the whole thing.
Go in there and just sing the 30-second high note.
Yeah,
And leave.
yeah. I would love to invite casting directors to come to my performances and see me, do a character for the whole evening.
Do the work. Yeah. I don't know. I was thinking about what I wanted to share with you today, and I was like, this piece is nice. We should just listen to this
We
piece.
can have nice. There can be music that is
We
just
can have
nice.
we don't have to have deeply intellectual elitist conversations. So I discovered the Ace Combat series a couple 2 years ago now, and it's really blown me away. I'm gonna play you Faceless Soldier from Ace Combat 7. This is the motif. So actually, about maybe like the 30 seconds ago, I was like, oh, maybe this was a bad choice because it's not doing anything for a little while. And then I forgot that there was that really nice like key change and shift in the electric guitar. So what do you think? So I mean, Ace Combat, you know, it's literally fighting playing game, and yet this music for me, it's very,
is that going on in the background while you're actually doing the fighting?
Yeah,
Man,
yeah.
It seems like too intense. Sometimes the music is like so overwhelming that like I can't concentrate on the like gameplay part. Does the singing part happen like in the intro, and then once the singing goes away, that's when you're fighting?
No, this is playing while you're fighting.
Man, yeah.
All of it's playing while you're fighting.
Yeah,
I didn't even play you one of the crazier tracks like Archange
right.
you know the things where the sky starts speaking Latin. That's the joke, is that the sky starts speaking Latin, and that's when you know what I do this every time, but I just love it so much, and I love sharing it so much. Why do you keep sharing? Why do you keep sharing the same song?
I like your voice that you have for your commenters. Like most people have like a very mean, like making fun of their commenters voice, but yours is just like.
No, I love my commenters. I love them. Without them, I don't have a job.
What are you doing? Why do you keep doing that?
Why do you keep playing the same songs? I just need you to hear Archange. You said that was too intense. Well, I'm gonna notch it up to 10 for you when this guy starts speaking Latin.
When I think about the amount of hand-eye coordination I would have to be fighting in an aerial situation.
Well, you're going to die if you go to the ground. You're going to die if you go too high up. You're going to die if you get shot out of the sky. You know, there was a situation where I was playing Ace Combat 5 on a PlayStation 2 a couple months ago. And I kept dying in this tunnel run where I had to go through a very tight, narrow tunnel. And I literally, my stomach hurt, my hands got cold. And it was just like before we go on stage.
That doesn't sound fun to me.
I was like, this is... It wasn't. It wasn't. The payoff was fun. But it was like really like a visceral physical experience, like pre-show jitters.
Doing something that's really
but not because I'm like sitting here like with a hunched back, like. You got yourself some like plain chant Gregorian Latin.
That's my shit.
I love that it's a cappella too.
Yeah, you're like locked into the.
Yeah.
Is this an American game?
Japanese. What do you think of that?
It's definitely unsettling. You know, I feel like that 7 really like gets you off balance. You know, so it's like daka 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 daka. You know, that's
interesting that you say that, because you're literally fighting against one of the best fighter pilots to ever live in this.
okay.
Of course it's unsettling.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I never thought about that.
So like the 7/8 time signature is designed to make you feel off balance, because it's like not possible to divide 7 clicks into equal parts. It's a prime number, right?
Yeah.
So like it's 2, 2, and 3. Daka 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 daka. So like the third beat of every measure, or of every, however you want to think of it, third beat of every beat is 1/8 note longer than the previous 2. And so each time that daka da happens, you're like, oh, where am I? Yeah. And then you find it again. Da, da.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just with the way my like rhythmic music brain works, I would be so focused on the music that I would even like forget I was supposed to be fighting.
Do you feel like this could be in a concert hall?
Yeah, there's like kind of like funky kind of crossover classical music that exists that's kind of like this. You know, I'm thinking of stuff like Snarky Puppy, or something like, you know, progressive jazz that's kind of like this, that has that like asymmetrical, uneasy feeling, but still has a groove.
Yeah.
I wonder. Yeah, it's not that far off from what appears in the crossover jazz classical world.
Was there a piece today that really stood out to you?
Probably either the Final Fantasy,
Urkopacha.
yeah, or the Warframe.
Has your opinion on video game music changed? Have you sort of become what is sort of your perspective on video game music?
You know what I keep thinking is I want to record it. I want to do it. Like, I want to be the person making it. I don't think that really exists a lot in the States. I mean, I know there's some studios in Nashville and in LA that do some things. Probably would have to live in Tokyo to do that.
There are, some opportunities definitely come
Yeah.
from that.
Yeah, but it's
So it motivates you to want to be a part of it.
yeah, because I think while I am not a capital G gamer, I have some adjacencies to gamer world. It's totally valuable, interesting music that has a real intentional purpose, right? Whereas, you know, stuff in a concert hall, stuff that's created specifically for a concert hall is sort of, you know, art for art's sake, or whatever that means. It exists on its own to be beheld. Whereas this music is meant to evoke something in the moment of this other thing. Listening to that Planet Zoo made me think like, oh, I should listen to more music that's just kind of pleasant, and maybe not only listen to things that get me in my feels, you know.
Is it? Well, yeah, it's a dangerous thing sometimes to only be listening to feels music, for sure. I really appreciate you coming on, Kevin. It means a lot, and you know, it's been good to catch up with you as well. Everybody, feel free to like, subscribe, check out Kevin's information over in the About section if you want to support him, support the channel, of course. And as always, thanks a ton, and we'll both see you later. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you later. Bye.